Imagine yourself 10 pounds lighter. Imagine yourself with no credit card debt. Imagine yourself being able to speak a foreign language. Your present self can't do this all the time, but your future self can. Catherine Milkman, who is a behavioral economist at the Wharton School, says there's a difference between what she calls your present self and your future self. Not that there's a time machine you can get in to get to your future self, but that we can make decisions today based on what our future self is envisioned to be. She actually did a study of people during the pandemic recently with buying groceries online and found the perfect example. The future self buys for 3 days ahead. If you're buying for today, that's your present self. What she found was people who buy groceries today to pick up on Wednesday or Thursday will buy things like whole grains and vegetables, good, lean, healthy meats. People who grocery shop for this afternoon, I'm going to order it now so I can pick it up at 1 o'clock, are more likely to buy junk food. Immediate gratification kind of things. You see, the future, our future self is more restrained. Our present self is a little more reactive and impulsive. My future self wants grains and vegetables. My present self wants Twinkies and chips. I'll just own it. As you know, a few years ago, I was, well, not forced. I went of my own volition to a healthier, whole food, plant-based diet because of health reasons. And I know this. I read this for the sermon today, and I went, oh my gosh, this is me. My future self says the best thing for me down the road is to eat a whole food, plant-based diet. But there are days my present self wants chips. There are days my present self wants something that isn't in the... And the way I can combat that in my own life is to remind myself I'm going to be really thankful a couple of years from now by making the choice I make now. It doesn't always work, but I say that to myself. It doesn't always work. I do cheat. I shouldn't, but I do. You see, the future self wants zero credit card debt. My present self wants a larger TV. My future self wants to learn a new language, but my present self gets bored after about 15 minutes or maybe 2 days of the online lessons. So I go to Rosetta Stone because, you know, Rosetta Stone, you none of that. It's learning a language without any of that pesky grammar and vocabulary. How do you learn a language without grammar and vocabulary? I teach German people. Without grammar and vocabulary, all I have left is beer and pretzels. Not there's anything wrong with beer and pretzels, but that's not a language. Your future self has to put in the work, or your present self has to put in the work to realize what your future self wants, correct? I want an amazing body. Do I ever go to the gym? That's a present self versus a future self, right? What do? You put your future self in charge as best you can. Psychology today says the more certain your future is, the more power it has. So make sure that your future is certain and give it the power in your life. Jesus, in today's gospel, had the ability to make decisions from his future self and not his present self. Follow me. He goes to Jerusalem, and on his way he meets the Pharisees. The Pharisees say to him, and this is actually quite surprising because the Pharisees didn't like Jesus. So I'm not sure whether they said it to be nice or whether they said it to trip him up. I don't know what they were doing because, frankly, they were a bit smarmy. Okay? Herod wants to kill you. You'd better leave town now. Turn around, Jesus. Jesus does not panic, though, and change course, if you notice. You go and you tell that fox for me. I love that. Tell that fox for me. People always say that Christians shouldn't speak bad things, right? Christians should be nice. A fox, let's unpack that for a second, shall we? Are foxes particularly friendly animals? When you're in an agrarian culture, a fox is dangerous. A fox is a predator. A fox is one who preys on the vulnerable and kills them. He's just called Herod a fox. You go and tell that fox for me. He says, listen, I'm casting out demons and performing cures today and tomorrow, and on the third day I finish my work. You see, Jesus has an agenda for what he's doing, and that agenda is based on his future self. The more certain the future is, the more power it has in your life. Jesus has put his future self in control, not what could be his fear for Herod. You see, Jesus knew that he had to, must, big capital red letters, die and be raised. This made his future really powerful. There were no options. He couldn't turn around, and he knew it. So what do the scriptures then say for us today? What would it mean for us if we were to put our future selves in charge as individuals and as a church family? What would it mean for us if we kept the crucifixion and the resurrection of Jesus as the main focus in our lives and in our ministries here and now, just like Jesus did? Keeping a focus on the crucifixion, I think, would remind us that Jesus said, no greater love has anyone than to lay down their life for another. Keeping the cross in front of us means service to neighbor. It means remembering the refugee. It means lifting up the poor and the powerless. It means offering a safe place to the struggling. The American writer J. Parini says this: Jesus never meant to found a formal church with rituals, with organizational practices, to ordain priests, to issue doctrinal statements that formed a rigid program for salvation. That was not Jesus. That was the church. Other than follow me, his only commandment was to love one another as I have loved you. A focus on the present day keeps us trapped in fear. Jesus could have turned around and gone the other way, but he knew that wasn't an option for who God intended him to be. A fear of present day, a focus on present day, keeps us trapped in suspicions and resentment. But a focus on the resurrection opens a whole world of possibilities, doesn't it? Life can change if you're a resurrection people. Hope can win over despair and fear if you're a resurrection people. Peace can prevail over war and brokenness if you're a resurrection people. The ministry of Jesus reminds us that if we put too much focus on our current self, we hurt ourselves and our church. What if we put our future selves in charge? What if we became a people focused on the crucifixion and the resurrection? Ones who are willing to lay down their life and their ministry for those who need it most. And ones who see without a shadow of a doubt the hope of the power of the risen Christ. What if we put our future selves in charge? Then we could love one another with sacrificial love and experience new life. In this season of Lent, we are reminded. Let's keep our focus on the future that matters. The future of resurrection, of crucifixion. The future of Jesus. Amen.